What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Mark. We got an evening edition here, and I have my friend Jay from Niche Devices. Jay, thanks for making some time and stepping away from the Northern Lights.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Dude, that was sick. Like, I didn't catch any of it. I was so pissed because people in Maryland were like posting pictures, and I was like, where are people seeing this? I don't see it anywhere.
It's you have to catch and the beauty of social media, and it has its flaws, right? But
Right.
it's like all of a sudden you're scrolling through and like, what the hell is this? And this is happening now, and just like people in my area, like I better get outside and check this out. So I
Right.
did, and it never looks quite as good as the photos to your
I'm
naked
sure.
eye. The camera technology has evolved to the point where it's better than our eyes, which is kind of scary. But yeah, it's been really cool a bunch of times over the summer and as recently as last month. Yeah,
Yeah, man. Was that like late night? Like, was it like super
yeah.
late in the evening? Okay.
It's 11 o'clock, 10:30 to 1 a.m., something like that. Which that's my prime time. That's go time.
Right. That's awesome, dude. Well, it looks beautiful. Those pictures that you said. I almost played a joke on my family because we have like a family thread, my wife's side of the family, in text, and they were like, "Oh, I saw it, blah 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 over here," and I was gonna be like, "Damn it, I'm just gonna send them Jay's picture, be like, look what we
Yeah,
saw," and I
it's
showed
not
my wife.
bad.
She's like, you should," but I didn't. I didn't. Well, anyway, lots to talk about today. I'm going to start up front and tell everybody. So, anybody that's listening on Apple or Spotify or whatever after this, I'm going to kind of put some links up later for Jay's website and all that so you can check out his awesome pedals. But I got his compressor, the Humboldt, about a month ago, I
Yep.
guess. And when he came on, I was practicing for a gig that's coming up, and I told him I can't not play with it always on now. And there's some magic in what this man has created with this compressor. And there's a lot, and we were talking before this, and Jay, you can speak to this about like it's a compressor that can convert people who aren't compressor fans, kind of thing.
Exactly. Um,
Um, but one thing really quick though is I will say up front that I think it's such a natural sounding compression that it doesn't get in the way of any of your preconceived notions of what a compressor is supposed to sound like. So tell people a little bit about like what your goal was with that.
I mean, it can do that really heavy compressory sound if that's what you're after, and that's kind of the beauty of the mix knob. And but what I was going for is trying to get guitar players who think of themselves as not compressor people. It's like I don't do that. I don't like the sound. It's not for me. And just play through it and see what happens. And you'll find what you have found and what a lot of our artists have found is that they can't turn it off, which is it's great for us.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the goal. It seems to be working. We're just such a small company. We're just trying to get the word out kind of organically. But yeah, we wanted a natural optical compressor, and the transformer aspect of it kind of came as almost as like an afterthought that just completely changed the direction of the pedal. I was like, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, oh my god, I have to get this thing into the pedal somehow. And that's kind of, you and I were talking before, that's kind of like that adding detail and pick detail, and it just adds sparkle and life, and it's amazing.
Yeah. It's hard. There's only been like a couple pedals that I've played through that I genuinely was like, this makes my two rock. And that two rock is like the best amp I'll probably ever own.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a
and
good one.
yeah, it's a good one. And that your pedal makes it sound better. And the 29 pedals Una are the only two pedals I've ever played through that I'm like, wow, this adds life to this already super robust amp. So it's saying something, man.
Yeah, and that's there's kind of a happy medium when you're trying to make a pedal and you're trying to make a circuit that you don't. I don't know. I'm not trying to be the focus. I'm trying to make sure that what you already have sounds better to you, or it doesn't take away from it at all it does is lift it up. And it sounds like that's what's going on for you, at least, which is
Oh,
nice.
yeah, 100%. So I would highly urge any of my subscribers to this channel, if you are in search of a really, really great sounding compressor at a very affordable price, by the way, with just pro components, and if you want to bring your playing to life and because I feel like I'm hearing things more now too, Jay. Like when I'm playing, like it's like I'm hearing the notes bloom in a different way, and not bloom like how like overly squashed compressors can make a note bloom, but bloom in a way that's like articulate, without being any kind of like stabby, kind of aggressive, but like there's just something about how it feels under my hands that's making me inspired to play.
That's the whole goal right there. I mean,
Yeah, man.
that's music to my ears. Just want it to be an instrument in its own right, where it inspires you in the same way that a really great guitar would inspire you. So like you pick it up, I want to play this, and like I just want to sit when I get home from work, I want to play. Then
Hmm.
that's the goal.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. Well, you nailed it. You nailed it. All right, so we'll come back. We'll come back full circle, and we'll talk about the Dakota 2 and all that. But I don't want to like skip out on my normal thing here, man. Like, what's your
Sure.
earliest musical memory, Jay?
Oh man. So in 1987, I was a 7-year-old kid, and my parents took us to see the Monkees. Opening for the Monkees was Weird Al. It blew my mind, and I still to this day like have very fond memories of the show. I think it triggered something in me, honestly, like to seek out live performance. And to me, having no sense of who the Monkees even were, or even caring, like he just blew them off the stage, and it was incredible.
Where was this?
CMAC, Canandaigua Musical Performing Arts Center.
Okay, man, that's
It was
crazy,
great.
dude. My first real concert when I was a kid was the Monkees too,
Oh my God, get
and
out.
they Herman's Hermits opened up for them
Nice.
at Pier
Nice.
6 in Baltimore, and I'll never forget that. That's so funny, man.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So early on, like if you're 7 years old and you're going to, see live music and stuff, is your family musical? Is everybody lovers of music?
Lovers of music, yes. Not necessarily pick up instrument. Like there was never really instruments laying around the house, but it was always music playing, in the car, in the house. And I've always gravitated towards the drums in particular, which is my natural instrument. And, obviously play the guitar as well, but, from a very young age, just love the drums, love the whole idea of it. And, you know, in my early teens, mid teens, like saw a bunch more shows that were, you know, just absolutely pivotal in my musical growth for sure.
Okay. Any like specific albums, like after you saw Weird Al and like you were starting to be like, oh wow, music is this thing. Any like pivotal, like seminal records early on that got you to the drum set?
To the drum set specifically, um, I mean, back then, just like everybody else, I was listening to Michael Jackson and the Beatles because it was always on in the house. But I don't know what drove me to the drums other than I just couldn't keep my hands and my feet still. So it was like
Okay.
there's a perfect outlet.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, I would say everything that was going on in the late 80s, early 90s, like as a kid, you're just absorbing it, and it's just there, and you have no idea how monumental some of these things are, because it's like it's just playing at the mall. You're like, oh, whatever, it's Michael Jackson. This is just music. And now with the context looking back, you're just like, man, we were just spoiled so much good music.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Where were you the first time you heard Bohemian Rhapsody? Do you remember?
Oh, it was before Wayne's World came out, but then Wayne's World came out and they did that whole opening scene, and then it just became a cultural phenomena all over again. For someone my age, I'm sure in the '70s it was its own thing, but I wasn't there for that. So I would say Wayne's World, which is what, '93 probably.
Probably around then. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. I'm
yeah,
sure there was a run on Queen Greatest Hits right after. I know I bought it after I saw that
abs-
movie.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's another movie that is just like very rock and roll centric, even if it was like in a comedic way. That I don't know, like everything back then just seemed to like really push us all towards like instruments and music and stages and I don't know, it just felt like the natural place to go for me.
Yeah, that's true, man. Like you can think about there's a couple movies I feel like that always come up when it comes to musicians. Wayne's World is one of them because of that, but like Back to the Future is
Oh yeah.
another one,
Oh
with
yeah.
that whole ending scene. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, like people like RJ Ronquillo and stuff like that, who are like, that's like the moment for them that they wanted to play guitar, singing Back to the Future.
Yep.
But it is funny. We don't see much these days in music, like in movies that have a music kind of underlying current running through them that has like this exposure of like getting on stage or guitars or whatever. Well, I mean, like School of Rock, I guess, was another one at some point for that generation.
Sure. But even that was 20 years ago, believe it or not,
That's crazy, man.
isn't that
We're old,
crazy?
dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. So tell me a little bit. So I talked to, Rob Campa a little bit about you in the past. He's the one that kind of, introduced me to you practically. And he told me like your band back in the day that he would like sit in and everything. So walk me through how you got to like the band, The Niche, from like when you started playing drums. Like how many iterations of different bands did you play in? Were you always playing drums?
I was always playing drums. Had a drum kit. It came off of the back pages of the newspaper. We bought it used from somebody for $200 or something, and it was just my basement kit. And then turned into like that first experience of like taking it to your buddy's house, and it was like, hey, let's jam, and like playing in a barn or a basement or a garage, and just like that's your after school activity. And then I would say by 98, like when I was graduating high school, got into a pretty serious band, and it was like in the jam band vein. And I had already been to some Fish shows, and I was headed that direction anyways, and so we got into that. So yeah, there's just some garage bands here and there, and then one band in between, and then I met all of the other three dudes in the niche in the fall of '99, and we hit it off immediately. And then by March of 2000, we were playing shows, and we hit the ground hard, and really really went at it hard. Yeah.
What was going on? Like, did you start off kind of just playing local shows and you were trying to expand out and like getting tri-state area? Like, walk me through what you guys were doing.
Yeah, so the other three guys had all moved to Rochester from the Watertown area. So they had already had like a friend base up there. I had my roots in the Rochester area, and so we're playing in Rochester, trying to expand out. But we've already got this group of friends kind of up north, so we're kind of spreading that way. And I don't know how, whether it was you know early management, but within 6 or 7 months, we had a slot opening for Max Creek in
Huh?
Albany, and it was huge for us. Like, and those guys were so great. We were, at that time, I was a 20-year-old kid. Two of the other guys in the band were still in their late teens, and the Max Creek guys were really gracious and really taught us a lot about you know what we should be trying to do, and in order to get bigger and better gigs. And we just we went from there. So just expanding out from Rochester, Oswego, Watertown, and then um, ending up really hitting well anywhere there was a SUNY school. It's like Oswego, Plattsburgh, it was like Oneonta. It was like those sort of places just really hit well for us.
Yeah. Nice. Were you guys like at the time, I'm sure being from like upstate-ish New York, like Mo was around a lot
Oh yeah.
in those years. So did you guys ever work with them?
We didn't work with them directly, but we were definitely influenced by them. We had their records. We were well aware of them. It's like we're all going to Fish shows as fans, and then you've got Mo happening, and then you've got other things that are happening within the area. The Disco Biscuits were just starting to come on the scene. Um, free beer and chicken was big at the time,
I
and like,
remember that thing.
and the Mo guys were buddies with them, and like all of that scene was definitely happening for sure. And there was also in the early 2001 was really when the like instrumental fusion trio stuff really started taking off, like Schleiho and Ulu and like all these guys that kind of eventually became, what Lotus and guys like that are now. Sound Sector, STS9,
Yeah.
things like that, where it's just like kind of a jazz fusion sound with more of like a dance thing going on. So there was a lot happening for sure.
Yeah. That time was, it felt like it's still at that time to me, because I was gigging up and down the East Coast with my band and in that scene, and it felt like very fertile.
Oh yeah,
Like nowadays, I feel like there's so many people in that, so many bands in that genre. But I feel like at that time, like the late 90s, started to feel like that was the turning of the tide for maybe a lot of people in our demographic, in our generation, in terms of like growing up on grunge. Like I grew up on grunge, then got exposed to John Scofield's A Go-Go from my older brother and the Grateful
same,
Dead, and
same.
yeah,
Yep,
and then you just like your focus shifts to like, oh, like there's this whole other world of music that's like a higher level of playing, and I want to play with people that listen that well, you know what
yep,
I mean? But then
absolutely.
I feel like the early 2000s still had that vibe. It still had all that going on.
For sure. And certain venues definitely help to push that along. You had the wetlands going on in New York City, and higher ground up in Winooski, and places like that that were just really focused on helping bands like us and the whole scene just to be heard, and to get it, because there was no, the internet was in its infancy, and there was no real way other than going out to shows. And I don't know, that might have a lot to do with it, where it was just it felt more fertile, just because like, if people were going to hear you, they had to go hear you, they had to go experience it, they had to be in the room. And it was great for us, I mean.
Hmm.
And then Fish taking a hiatus, that was also, as much as I love those guys, it was huge for us.
Yeah. Do you think bands like Mo didn't capitalize on that?
They definitely did. I mean, they Humphreys, Mo, those guys grew leaps and bounds that day. You know,
Hmm.
we all did. And um, you don't want it to be at the cost of, Trey's health or anybody having to stop. But there's a scene out there moving around from town to town, and those people are going to go somewhere. They went from the Grateful Dead to Fish, and then like they're gonna go somewhere. They want to hear music. They want to experience the scene. They gotta go somewhere.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing to like think about like Junta coming out when it did in the late 80s
Yeah,
to like what's going on now with that band, like how they've kind of come all the way back to just writing like songs and not doing
yeah.
a lot of through composed stuff. And I'm seeing like there's a lot of cats, because I got away from Fish for a long time. Like
I think we
when
all
I
did.
when I was
Yeah.
at Berkeley, I was like Wayne Krantz and Oz Noy and
Yep.
Charlie Hunter and like all like
Yep.
just really getting deep into fusion and all that. And when they came back from their hiatus and they played at Fenway, my buddies came up and we went, and it was not a great show.
Yeah.
And I was like, ugh, like, I don't know if I can do this again. Like, but now I'm like, I'm way back in it because I'm like, man, they sound awesome right now.
There is, especially this past tour, 24, like what's so amazing is they just continue to find new ground, year after year, and they refuse to be a nostalgia act, and they just keep on trucking. And I, a lot of respect to Trey for his songwriting choices. As much as I love all the old stuff that he was writing in college, like, you know, I think he has said, to paraphrase, it's just like, he would be it'd be disingenuous if he was to just try to mimic that songwriting style. Like, he's writing what he's feeling now, and like I got a ton of respect for that. Even if I don't necessarily prefer it, all of it, to what has happened in the past, like, I respect the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't really point a bad finger at 46 Days. It's one of the most simple songs ever, but like to see them play that live and, feel that song and, as funky as it can possibly be at times,
Absolutely.
it's perfect. That's all you kind of need. I think that's the thing that a lot of my friends don't understand, that don't get the jam band thing, is everybody thinks it's like you write a song for the purpose of being able to noodle and improvise. And I don't see it that way. I see the song as being like, that's the first intention, right? And then the love of improvisation gets infused into that if the song calls for it.
Exactly. And not every song does.
Mhm.
It's, you could hear it that way if you were only hearing those songs, but and you'd be ignoring, the other 12 songs in a two set night, where it's like 4 minute start to end, it's the same every night type of thing, and
Mhm.
there's room for all of it.
Yeah. I think that's, another reason why, I love Pearl Jam so much, is that like they try to do the same thing in the spirit of the Grateful Dead, is like changing up their set list every night. Now, I will say that they're not the greatest of it, because if I have to listen to them play a live as an encore one more time, I'm gonna be like, guys, come on, dude. It's a great song, but can you do one gig without playing it? I dare you. It's like, I get it. It's like the song that brings everybody together, but I'm like, that and Rockin' in the Free World and Yellow Ledbetter at the end of the night, I'm like, all
Yep.
right, come on, you guys have done this a million times.
The people pleasers,
Yeah,
sometimes you got to go with it.
it's a different vibe for sure, but I like the spirit of that. Um, so let me just ask you. So while we're talking on the tip of jam bands and everything, so obviously it's something that we both love. We both love like the improvisational aspect of these bands and like the musicianship that's involved with playing some of this music. So when you guys were hitting it hard and like, let's just say, so at the hiatus, was that a time when you guys were like, okay, like the clock is ticking, we need to like hit the road and we need to get in front of as many people as we can now? Like, what was the approach at that time?
I, th- I mean, it's hard to say definitively, like, yes, this is exactly how I was feeling 20 years ago, but we definitely were aware of it. Every other band in the scene was aware of it, and they knew that we were all, kind of jockeying for the same, it's like, let's go get it. And we hit it hard. And, by 2005, we were opening for Humphreys and Derek Trucks, and it was happening. And, it was there for the taking, but not everybody could capitalize. And, sometimes the scene just eats bands alive. That's what it did to us. And, so even had we properly capitalized on the moment, we still just we put the roll before the rock instead of putting the music first. And it's, when you're 25, like, that's just how it goes sometimes. So,
Yeah.
way of the road.
What was like the gig that you were like most nervous about because you were opening for someone that you really respected, do you think?
Humphreys was one of those nights, but we really put a lot of effort into the set. and the vibe, and just making sure we were super well rehearsed for that night. And we had a ton of respect for those guys and still do. You know, Ryan Stasek is a client of ours, has a humble, super awesome dude. But even at the time, we just had so much respect for those guys. I would say probably Project Object, which was
Oh,
a Zappa spinoff that still had it had Ike Willis and Napoleon Murphy Brock and all of these like Zappa legends, and those guys did not mess around. Like that was a tight environment to like try to get up and play your music, like what with these guys staring at you, and then hearing them go up after and just do what they do. You're just like, I would say that is one, because we opened for them a couple times, at least twice, and it was just like you try your best to put everything into that show, and you just still come away just feeling like, man, like I'm
did
never
we
gonna
do
sound like
enough?
those. I'm never gonna sound like those guys, you know.
Yeah.
But
Dweezil wasn't playing with that band, was he?
no, and no.
Okay.
See, this was just before Zappa plays Zappa, so it
Okay.
was like Project Object kind of evolved into like Dweezil's backing band, if I'm not mistaken, because you know, it was definitely Napoleon and maybe even Ike Willis, but it was fun. Ike is a trip. Dude
I'm
isn't.
sure.
Dude is wild, but yeah. So those gigs were a lot of fun, but nerve wracking. You know, where it's just like you, there's not enough time in the world to rehearse before you play in front of a Zappa band. It just isn't.
Yeah. It's funny because there's so much high regard for that band, and I mean I love the Mothers of Invention record with Inca Roads on it. I love that record. Like Florentine Pogan is like one of my favorite Zappa tunes.
Yep.
And
Um,
but some of it's too out there for me, dude. Like some of it I can't wrap my head
oh,
around it.
absolutely. Well, that's one size fits all, and that's Napoleon Murphy Brock, and he's awesome. He really really is awesome. Killer sax player, and then he's also singing like just the most beautiful voice you ever heard. But yeah, that one size fits all is great, but yeah, some of it is just, you know, what am I listening to right now? And
Hmm.
I feel like a modern sort of analog to that is like King Giz, where it's just like I'm loving this, and then all of a sudden they shift gears. I'm just like, I'm lost right now. Like, what just happened? You know,
Dude, I haven't listened to those guys at all yet. I, I
it's a
guess I
trip.
should check it out. What's a good album to check out first?
Changes.
Okay, I'm gonna
Um,
write this down.
I listen to that a lot because it fits my profile of what I would want to listen to, but they're amazing in that they can play anything, which I don't know. I was trying to think about like how I felt about it, because it's just like, okay, like this album is killer. And then they'll go and play Norwegian black metal on the next album. And you're just like, what is happening? It's then they're incredibly talented. It's amazing. But
Okay.
it's very it's spread very far apart, all of it. It's like Zappa to me, where it's like you're covering a million different styles and you're doing it in a way that's almost like in a little bit of jest, but not, I don't know.
Like,
Not,
don't take yourself too seriously, but do what you feel is right for the moment, kind of
yeah,
thing. Okay.
absolutely.
Because I really, really respect bands who can reinvent themselves every record. I
Sure.
have the most utmost respect for those guys, or anybody that can do that, any band. And I feel the same way. I say this all the time, but Charlie Hunter is my North Star for that.
Yep.
That dude could give a shit about what his fans are gonna expect that he's gonna do on the next record. And I think it's not like he's doing it, unabashedly, like, watch me do this. He's doing what he's feeling at that moment.
As we all
Um,
should be, really.
yeah, like, and it's just it's amazing to me when you can do that and still bring your fans along with you. That's amazing. I mean, anyone that's willing to go on the ride, like somebody like us,
Absolutely.
that's just like true art for me, at least. It's amazing to have a career that long, Um, all right, let's talk a little bit about. I want to ask you a little bit about how you got into working with circuits and electronics, because it's very clear to me that drummers are another level of smart. I feel like there's always drummers that are just doing, whether they're doing music for film and like composing and like, or building amps or doing something that you would never expect. Like, how the hell did you start messing with this stuff?
We all, drummers in general, grew up hearing dumb drummer jokes, you know, from your band teacher to everybody down the line, that we're just like, well, I'm going to show you. No, I don't know. I mean, I've always it's always been around. Like my dad is a tinkerer, and he at one point in the late '60s, early '70s worked in a tube radio slash TV shop. So there was always like soldering irons and tubes and resistors and stuff laying around the house. And he was also, you know, when he in his job was a like a troubleshooter, fix it guy, which, you know, is actually what I do for my corporate work as well in my day job, which is like, hey, figure this out, fix it. Those things kind of come together where it's like, we got a problem, you know, or you've got an end goal in mind. For me, it was, I want to make an optical compressor that is clean and pleasant and natural and, you know, fun to play. Let's get there. So, but you know, in the early days of the niche as a drummer, I was kind of, I don't know if I did this myself or the other guys just saddled me with it, but I was kind of the troubleshooter, fix it guy. It's like pack the van, drive the van, fix my pedal board, figure out why the sound system's not working, and like, all right, let's sit down, let's troubleshoot it, start to finish, and get it going. So you kind of get a reputation for being able to do that, and then it grows into, you know, hey, tweak my knobs. So guitar player standing there playing, bass player standing there playing, like, and I'm twisting knobs, which I really found out I really enjoyed understanding how pedals work, how tone works, and what, you know, small increments, you know, on a pedal, what they can do to change a circuit. So all of that just kind of came together,
Oh, to
you know.
interject real quick, by the way,
Yeah.
Jay, your pedal, the tapers are great.
Oh, thank
Like
you.
the values, the way that things are added in and everything feels very um natural, and in terms of like, you know how sometimes if you're messing with the pedal and you turn it up 25% and it's at 100% already.
Yeah,
That's not
it's
your that's not your stuff.
it's
So
funny you point that out, because the master volume knob was that way on the earliest pedals, and we addressed it and figured out, you know, how to make it better. So the one that
okay.
you have definitely has like a really nice tasty sweep to it. I mean, it's like you got a lot of room to play in there, but it wasn't always that way.
Okay, it
So
sounds awesome.
thanks.
Yeah, man. All right, sorry to I had to interject and say that.
No, so yeah, all of that just kind of came together, and then I don't know if it was COVID specifically or what, but it was just like, all right, like this is something I've always wanted to do, and like I've always known I could do it. That sort of attitude where it's just like, I can do that. Let's do it. And so, you know, you start, and then you realize what you're getting yourself into. It's like, what am I doing? But I'm not going to stop now. So I got some books, got on Reddit, got on wherever I could find information, and started to put it together. And here we are.
Because you know it's really impressive to me, and you can tell me if I'm like overthinking this or if I'm dead on or whatever, but I'm very curious about people that build pedals and build amps and things that are electronically based, how you start to understand what components do. Because it seems to me that there are a lot of different components,
Oh
but
yeah,
like in terms of you know, if you're talking about like an overdrive circuit or something like that, like understand like, oh, I'm going for this sound, so I need this specific part because I know that this delivers on that sound. Is that something that becomes more innately in your vocabulary as you do
sure,
it? Okay.
sure. It's just like anything else, right? And it just takes some practice and time on task. Where it's like, breadboarding is like the practice studio of a pedal builder's world, where it's like you've got this thing and nothing is permanent, and you can plug in a resistor here and this and lay out your circuit. And it's like, all right, what happens if I replace this resistor with a higher value, or put a capacitor in here, anything, and you're playing around. This is your studio. This is where you can, nothing's permanent. This is just like a playground to come up with my circuit idea before we go any farther.
Mhm.
But it's time on task, and it's studying. It's read books. There's so much knowledge out there, and you think about analog audio circuitry going back to RCA radio in the 20s, and you know Fender amps, like all of that stuff is based on old radio books that were written 100 years ago, and it's still to this day it's the way to go, and all of that knowledge is out there, and we all have it in our pocket. You just have to find it.
Yeah. How much of that though? It's pretty astounding to think how lucky Leo Fender got the first time. Like the
Yeah,
stuff he got right the first time. I don't. I can't think of a lot of products throughout history, especially in the music business, but like where somebody nailed something that's that iconic immediately. You know what I mean? Like if you think about the Telecaster, just that alone, it's like people are going to be playing that until this world blows up.
absolutely. The Strat too. Yeah,
Yeah,
Telly,
it's
the Strat.
it's
Uh,
nuts.
and there's something to be said for the canvas that he was approaching was completely blank. There's nothing else out there. So now, if you were trying to create the perfect guitar, look at what you're competing with, and
Right.
it's all out there. So he has this opportunity to just say, "Here's a guitar." Everybody says, "Okay, here's a guitar," and there really is something to be said for that, and it's kind of similar to the mix down process in the studio, where it's just like you could sit there for weeks in the dark, pulling your hair out. Oh, this sounds better. Wait, does it actually sound better? And you're tweaking and you're mixing days and days and days, and then eventually you end up back at your bass mix that you had in the first 40 seconds of mixing. It's like, if it's good, it's good. Just go with it.
Yeah. Oh man. So like how many I want to get to like I want you to describe the difference between the Dakota and the Humboldt, but like how long did it take you to land on the Humboldt?
The humble process was 2 years of design, and that's not necessarily, just days and nights for 2 years. I mean, a lot of that is just based on my circumstances, where it's just like I'm a dad, I've got a corporate job, I've got a life, to uphold, and this is like just me tinkering in my shop. But yeah, it was 2 years of. Remember, I was telling you about the breadboard, right? It's like
Mhm.
I'm breadboarding, and towards the end of it, so I had what is now the Dakota circuit. I had my optical compressor with an amplified clean that you could blend, and that's really what I was after. I was like, I want this high headroom that won't get grungy. I want a really clean compressor that I can blend in an amplified clean signal. That's what the Dakota is, and I had it. And then I was messing around with a mixing board that I had here, just tinkering around, and plugged my guitar into an input that was supposed to be an XLR input, and just couldn't believe what I was hearing from this old preamp on a mixer, and tore it apart. Had to find out why. Went through a million different rabbit holes of how an input transformer works, and then decided I have to figure out how to get this into the Dakota now, because I can't live without it. And
Man.
that's what ended up being the Humboldt. So the Dakota circuit is all of the pedal with no transformer. So It's a little bit of a flatter EQ. It's a little bit better. It's much cleaner at super low frequencies. So, bass players with preamped basses, things like that, if they're have a real hot signal, they might find the Dakota to be better. But the Humboldt was just everything all together, and like it was one of those like light bulb moments when I was playing through it. And then to go back to that analogy about the mix down, where it's just like by the end of it, I'm pulling my hair out. I'm just like, I don't even know what's real anymore. I don't know up from down. Like I just feel like I feel like a crazy professor,
Mm-hmm.
put together a prototype um, that had everything in it, including the transformer that I had so painstakingly yanked out of that mixer. And I said, you know what? I need to go to someone that I trust. I need to get this out of my hands and out of my ears. And I went straight to my buddy Rob Tompa. I said, play this. And because I know he would not, if it was terrible, he would tell me. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want it. I didn't want to end up somewhere where somebody was like afraid to tell me the truth. And I knew Rob would tell me the truth. So
Mm-hmm.
that moment sitting in his house and listening to him play it, and you've heard his touch is amazing. He's like one of the
Oh my
best
God,
guitar
yeah.
players in the world,
Yeah.
Hearing him play it, just like all the hair on my body stood up. I'm just like, this is it. And he's like, this is it. So
Yeah. That's awesome,
this
man.
this is it.
Man. So, oh my God. So I'm telling you, everybody, like, I'm not blowing smoke here, but like, I cannot stop. Anytime I turn my rig on, like when I unplug my pedal board and I plug it back in, before I do anything, I just turn that pedal on because I'm like, I don't even want to hear what it used to sound like, before I had this, because in my chain, because it's so good, man. And like, I can't wait. So I think I told you this, Jay, but like, we're doing this show at this theater. We're headlining the show in a couple weeks with 2 other bands. And I have always wanted to play Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Oh yeah.
My whole life, I've always wanted to play that with a great band. And I pitched it to the guys, and they're like, of course, yes, we would love to play that. And then when I plugged this in and I started noodling with like the beginning, like noodly, like Gilmore stuff, I was like, "Ah, damn, this is the sound. Like this is the Strat sound that I'm getting right now. And I've never been able to do that. I've never had that as part of my arsenal. So thank you for that, obviously.
Thank you.
But like I'm used to like the other compressor that I have 2 other compressors. I think I have the Mini Ego from Wampler, which is great, but I usually use that for that super squashed like Corey Wong type stuff.
Yep.
And then I have that new JHS Ross compressor that I use with my acoustic rig, which sounds great. But I would never, ever use another compressor with my electric rig, I don't think, than this, because it's got me so lit up. So I really want everybody, let me put the website up here. So right now, if anybody is listening, if you just search niche effects, niche devices, you're going to find it. But go on Instagram as well and search niche devices, and you will find Jay. And if you have any questions about it, guitar wise, I'm sure he's happy to answer any questions, or hit me up. I don't care. I will blab more about how much I love it. It's really great, Jay. I mean, it's like, there's pedals that come in and out of your life. Obviously, a lot of overdrive pedals. And then you'll find that, okay, I will come back to something. I'm like, I'll throw my TS9 back on the board. I haven't played that thing in 15 years. And you're like, oh my God, it sounds amazing. Why did I not play this? And like, this is one of those things, I think, that if for some reason it came off my board 20 years from now, I put it back on and I'd have the same experience.
I hope so. And you and I were talking by text, shortly after you got it. It's not only does it just give you, that Strat sound, and does it elevate an amp that should need no elevation, but there's something about the there's like a small mid push in the transformer, and there's just the way that the compression circuit is working, that it's just making overdrive pedals after it just all that much better. And it's just like it can make a pedal that you had forgotten about like come back to life, and now you want to play that. It's not just the Humboldt. It's like, all right, I got to break out this overdrive pedal I forgot about, put it after the Humboldt, and all of a sudden you've got a totally new device, you know.
Yeah. You know what I'm really digging too, man, is about Cornerstone, that Italian company?
Oh yeah.
So I had the dual Gladio like right when it came out years and years ago. And I liked it, but then I got the Gladio was it SC? And I like that more than the dual Gladio. So I sold the dual Gladio, and I've always kept the SC. And your pedal and that pedal really like each other. There's some symbiotic relationship there, because I use that pedal last in my overdrive chains, because I'll have like a fuzz and then like two overdrive normally, and one that's like a heavier overdrive and then a lighter overdrive.
Yeah.
So the SC is always kind of like my light, just a little bit crispy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And putting the Humboldt before that, it kind of takes away that high end frequency stuff from the SC. So like any of those like high end artifacts that happen, it's almost like it smooths that stuff out and makes it more throaty. And I feel that way about like the JHS Morning Glory. Dude, that pedal is friggin' awesome.
Yeah.
Like Josh is really making great stuff, and people kind of write it off sometimes because it doesn't cost $500. But I'm like, dude, the JHS Morning Glory is dope. It's especially with the Strat, it sounds awesome.
Absolutely.
But same thing, that pedal just makes everything shine that much brighter. And I I told you that too. I was like, because when I was like, oh, so I'm gathering this is going to make everything else, just kind of break through the other side, as it were. And you're like, oh yeah. And then you got to play it to feel it, but it's true.
Right. And that's such a compressor thing where it's just like you can watch a million videos, but it's a feel in your fingers, and it's like just the way that your ears in the room, you can just feel it. And when you talk about, or when we were talking about, trying to find players who aren't compressor guys, Rob is one of those guys. Kurt Johnson, who's a dear friend of mine, who is one of our artists. He was like not a big compressor guy. Both of those guys, Rob, Kurt, that pedal is on 100% of the time. And for Rob to have a compressor pedal on, it's just never turned off. Like, that's such an accomplishment for me. Because
Yeah.
people think of him, he's like, oh, he's a Trey. He loves Trey. Like, he probably is a big compressor guy. He wasn't, until I showed up at his house with this guy. Like, he really wasn't. And the same with Kurt. And Mike Ganser is another dear friend of mine who came off the Compa branch. Like, we've got like this family tree now where it's just like I reach out to a couple friends of mine, like, hey, try this pedal, and then off of the Compa branch start coming all these other guys like Mike Ganser, and like off the Mike Ganser branch start coming all these other artists like, hey, you got to try this. You got kind of what you're doing now. It's like, man, you got to hear this thing. So
Yeah.
I love all these guys. Like, I really do. And they've done so much for us, like Mike and Rob, Kurt, and everybody. Like, they really can't say enough about these artists.
Well, I'm just a bud on that tree, but I'm blooming more now, man. I'm spreading the
You're on the
gospel.
tree, and now you're a branch off the Compa branch now. So like someday I'm gonna have to draw all this out. But
Yeah.
it's amazing, like just to see it grow. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But,
Somebody was asking a question in here. I'm recently learning some funk rhythm. Here, compressors can help with that. Any
oh
truth? Yeah. So what I would agree. You give your thoughts on that, Jay.
yeah. I mean, if you're doing that typical like strat funk comping like stuff that goes on, like Daft Punk, like kind of like wiki dicky stuff, like that's a heavy compression, and the Humboldt will definitely do it if you are, you back the mix knob off so that you're more into the compressor side of the pedal. Yeah, that's what you're looking for, because you want to elevate that lower, more fine playing, and just kind of keep everything real even. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would say 100%. Like if you go in and listen to any of the Corey Wong stuff, anything that's like old school 70s funk, you're gonna hear a little bit of compression, even if that's like post, like from the
Oh
studio
yeah.
or whatever, you're gonna hear it. It's kind of essential for that sound. But I would say, even as a lead player, I mean, when you get into that upper register on a Strat or on a Telly, that can be highway to the danger zone for some people's eardrums. And
Yep.
this pedal will tame that, so it still get the punch in the throat, and you still get that mid-range kind of thing that guitars love, and the sustain,
Yes.
which is a huge. I mean, it's not something that I would like seek out and be like, I want this pedal just because I want sustained notes. It's like an afterthought and just an extra present under the tree, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And the fact that our clean blend is amplified, as opposed to a lot of compressors have a mix knob where you can bring your clean signal back in. The fact that ours is extremely amplified and has a lot of headroom so that it's nice and clean, you can almost, get a clean boosty kind of thing going on. Like you said, a ton of sustain. And the great thing about a compressor when you're playing leads is that it's stopping you from cutting everybody's head off. You're also stopping the front of house engineer from turning you down. If
Yeah,
he doesn't have to, then you're going to stay at the top of that mix. You're going to stay right in everybody's face, and it's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful thing, man. I think there's some people who are like, well, let your amp do the compression. I'm like, some people, you can't turn your amp up that loud on gigs to get that
Right,
happening, you know?
right. And it's a different thing. Like, you could say an overdrive pedal, like a tube screamer, has compression, and it does, but it's not uniform. You're peaking out your signal, and you are technically compressing your signal, but it's not uniform like a compressor is. Everybody who plays electric guitar can benefit from a good compressor. Everybody. And it's it's hard because it's not one of those like sexy buys like an overdrive is, like a
Hmm.
delay. Everybody loves to buy a delay and just like noodle in their basement, right? But
Hmm.
a compressor, especially if you are a professional, a semi-pro, like, everybody should have one. Like,
Yeah,
that's not even negotiable. It really
yeah,
should be there.
I agree. And then if you play slide like me, it's also an added huge bonus. Like if you think about Lowell George, you like smashing that sound with 1176s, like there's, a pedal like this, and trust me, like I've played a ton of slide with this too,
Yep.
and both in open C and in standard, and it really helps kind of make everything sound uniform, especially when I'm switching between those two guitars, because the open C is so, dude, it's like, it is gnarly. Like when I put that thing on and I'm playing that, I have to approach playing it differently because it's got heavy ass strings on it. But I don't feel like I have to play that different when I switch guitars, because that pedal is kind of keeping everything kind of in the equilibrium.
Yep.
Even with the different register that I'm playing in open C, which is very deep. It's, two semitones down. Um, or two, yeah. So it's just, two whole steps down, I should say. But it's not kind of getting in the way of it either. Like sometimes I feel like if I plug in a compressor and play an open C, this one is so natural, it feels like an amp compressing in a way. Um, but I don't even notice. It's like I don't even notice it, but I do. You know?
You only notice it when you turn it off, and that's the sign of a really good compressor.
Right.
Is that it's just like, oh, I can't live without it. And you turn it on, you're like, I don't hear what this thing is doing. And you turn it off, and you're like, okay, I need that to go back on
Yeah.
immediately. That's a good compressor. It
Yep.
is.
Yep. It is. Everybody, please buy one. They're awesome.
Please.
All right. So Jay, we're running out of time. I'm gonna do the lightning round get down with you. Last week I changed it up, and people were like, "Don't change it up. We like the lightning round get down." So, gonna ask you 10 questions, rapid fire, this or that. You can explain your answers if you want. You don't have to. You can burn right through it if you want. That's fine as well. First one's always the same. Lennon or McCartney?
McCartney.
Laser tag or physical tag?
Physical tag.
Will Ferrell or Mike Myers?
Ferrell.
Zeppelin or Black Sabbath?
Zeppelin. Bonham.
Okay. Strat tones or Les Paul tones?
Oh, Strat. I mean, okay. Where are we going?
You're the Strat guy. Water park. Hell yes or hell no?
You won't catch me dead there.
Sunrise or sunset?
These days it's sunset because I'm a night owl and sunrises are becoming few and far between. But...
Okay. Breakfast bacon or sausage?
Ooh, bacon.
Okay. Story of the Ghost or Billy Breathes?
Billy Breathes.
Yeah, me too. That's my favorite record, dude.
It's so good.
It's so good. All right, here's the last one. All right, Jay. So if you could take one album and erase it from your memory, just so you could go back and experience it for the first time again, what album would that be?
Oh my God. Billy Breathes.
Okay. Tell me why.
It's such a huge accomplishment for them at that time to make a successful studio record like that and just not care about all the noise at that time. I remember being 16 and hearing the noise. I'm just like, I remember standing in American Eagle buying a t-shirt or something and hearing Free. And it's like, oh man, Fish sold out. now as a 44-year-old man, I'm just like, that is a huge accomplishment that they I'm sure are proud of, and they still should be. And like, it's such a good album. And that's such a hard question. I want everybody here to know that I listen to a lot more than just Fish, but that's such a good album. And,
it is.
I also wanted to mention, I know you got Aaron coming up on Thursday, right?
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. And
yeah, this is a makeup because I had COVID when he was supposed to be on.
We were talking about like early, transformational concerts. In '94, I was 14 years old. I tagged along with my big brother and his friends. We went and saw the Spin Doctors, and it was at Darien Lake. It was like Spin Doctors and Screaming Trees and
Soul Asylum.
Soul Asylum.
I went to that same tour, man.
Yep. Yeah, it was so awesome. Good. And it was just one of those experiences where it's just like, I want to do this. I want to be up on stage, But Aaron was there.
Man. Yeah, and dude, I talk about this all the time. And like, I will wave their flag until the day I die, but people shit on the Spin Doctors so hard only because of their commercial success.
Same thing as Billy Breathes.
Yeah.
It comes back to that again, where it's just like, everybody has that like little hipster in the back of their head where it's just like, you can only be so successful before I just shit on you,
Yeah. But dude, I mean, you think about like, and I will say this, I've probably said this 3 times in 200 episodes that I've done, but if you listen to, it's hard to find these days, but if you can find the Spin Doctors live record, Home Belly Groove, mind-blowing musicianship, just beyond like anything that was happening at that time. If you think about what was going on at that time in like that, they were surrounded by Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and like all the stuff that was completely not what they were doing.
Yeah. And that kind of brings it back around full circle to something we talked about earlier. They were a real big recurring band at the Wetlands. So, they were in the mix with Fish and Dave Matthews and Blues Traveler and all these bands, like in that early transformational, like kind of quasi hippie scene that was going on in Manhattan. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Is there anything that you would want to ask him?
Oh man, a million things just from drummer to drummer, but I don't know. I don't have anything right off the top of my head.
Text me tomorrow
Sure,
if you think of anything. He's on it
sure.
too, so it's an
Oh,
afternoon. Like I took off half a day at work so I could do
ni-
this in the middle of the day.
nice. I'll be watching.
Yeah, but I had Eric Shankman on too. I think it might have been like second or third season. He was like my hero. Like I cut my teeth real hard on Spin Doctor stuff and learning about modes like that because that dude just wasn't playing the pentatonic scale. Like if I
No,
listened to Mike McCready, that's what he was doing. But if I listen to Eric Shankman, he's playing modes, he's playing really out there stuff that I wasn't exposed to yet. And they exposed me to funk, if I'm honest. Like they made me be curious about where's that derivative of, you know?
you just helped me think of my question. Like,
Oh, okay.
did that diversity that kind of made them stand apart, did that come out of them cutting their teeth at Wetlands and being exposed to all these other bands that were not like them at all?
I already have that on my list.
That just means it was a good question.
It is a good question because I'm very curious about how it felt to them to be like surrounded on MTV with nothing but heavier music.
Yeah.
And then that had to feel very isolating and it had to make them feel like they didn't belong to
But
in a
they broke
way.
ground because it wasn't long after that everything started to change and everybody started getting into Weezer and like it
Yep.
really wasn't. It was only 2 years later that things started to brighten up a bit. You know, like right after Kurt died, like and Jerry died, like everything just shifted. You know, in both
Totally.
scenes. In both scenes, grunge scene just completely flipped and it changed into like kind of the Weezer Ben Folds like style,
Hmm.
and the jam scene completely flipped from dead to fish. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting time to be alive.
Yeah, man. We need to hang out in person one day, man. There's
Hell
so much
yeah,
in common with what
hell
we
yeah.
listen to and what we've been exposed to. So, all right, everybody, again, the official niche.com/devices. That's the website, correct?
That's the
Jay?
website for now. Yes.
Okay. BV, thanks for popping that out there. BV, always thank you for moderating. Instagram niche devices. I'm sorry I was pronouncing it niche. I'm in my like high school world where my teacher would be like, "That's not how you pronounce it."
You're not wrong. It's just I just go with like the Anglo, bastardization of it. But
I like it. I like it a lot. Anything else that people need to know, Jay? Anything coming up? Any new developments pet wise, or are we sticking with just getting these things out there?
it's taken me so long just to make these two derivative versions of the bigger pedal that I have a ton. I've got my whiteboard right over here. I've got 3 or 4 overdrives and some delays and all kinds of things that I want to do, and just my development process is so slow, and as you've seen. So yeah, nothing imminent, but there will always be stuff coming, and also on the band front, next year is the 25th anniversary of the niche, and we're working on that right now. So there
Oh, cool.
could be some interesting developments there. So
Oh, dude, that is awesome, man. Well, keep
yeah,
me abreast of that because if you
I
come
definitely will.
anywhere near down here, I definitely want to come.
I definitely
Um,
will.
all right, cool. Well, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out. Jay, of course, thank you for your time.
Man, thank you for everything. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, dude. And again, I'm gonna say it for the 15th time. Go buy one of this man's compressors, especially the
Please
Humboldt, because I love it. And if I love it, it doesn't mean anything really other than the fact that I love it. But still, I do
go
love it.
go
Um,
listen to Mark's demo of it because it really shows it. That's a great demo, by the way. I've
oh,
told you
thanks, man.
this already, but it's, yeah, please go listen to that and then go buy a pedal.
All right. Awesome. All right,
Thanks,
Jay,
buddy.
you hold on one second. Everybody
Yep.
else, take care of yourself, take care of each other. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
It's so funny. It's like not shutting off like it normally does. It's like it still says it's live, but it's not live. I guess we're good. I don't
That,
know.
that was
Wait a
awesome,
second.
man.
An
Thank
error
you.
occurred. Wait a moment.